Happy Friday, grade 7. We are looking at lesson 13.5 today. Please notice I skipped over 13.4. It's a problem-solving lesson, and I just didn't think we would have time to finish that before the end of the school year. So I decided to skip over problem-solving for now and move on to volume of prisms. So first we need to start with a definition of what volume is. So volume is a measure of how much space an object takes up. So if you were to think about if we had a fish tank, okay, here's our fish tank, we could find the volume of that fish tank by saying how much space it takes up. Now what I want you to note is this: volume is different than capacity. So often we think volume is, well, if I want to fill the fish tank, how many liters of water would I need to put in? That would be capacity if you're talking about liters, okay? But volume is the measure of how much space something takes up. So we could talk about cubic centimeters, or you could talk about cubic meters. So when we talked about area, we talked about things being squared, and now we're going to talk about things being cubed, because there's 3 dimensions that we're going to be working with. So anytime you find the volume of something, remember to put this cubed little 3 behind your units. So let's start with a pretty easy one, a rectangular prism. When we want to find the volume of something, we can use the formula volume equals length times width times the height. So there's a couple of different ways to think about that, really. It also doesn't really matter what you think is the length, what you think is the width, and what you think is the height. So what I could think about first is I could think about this square right here. If I wanted to just find the area of that square, you guys all know that I would do 3 times 4. That would be the area of that square. So we would actually know that that would actually be 12 centimeters squared. Now what I want you to do is I want you to picture this rectangular prism flipped so that this is standing on the ground. Now what you can do is you can picture this flat square of 12 centimeters squared on the ground, and then it builds up into a tower, which I can't really draw 3D, but it builds up into a tower. And that 12 centimeters repeats itself for 7 whole centimeters going up. So that's why when we find the volume of something, we can take that base, 3 times 4, and then multiply it by the height, which is in this case 7 centimeters going up. So I actually get 3 times 4 is 12, and then I do 12 times 7, which is 84. So I get 84 centimeters cubed, or cubic centimeters. Now, if we wanted to, we could think of it this way. So let's think about our base actually being the 4 times the 7. So I can still have my same formula, length times width and then times the height, but now I can think about not flipping it. So I can think, well, I'm going to do my length and my width as 4 and 7. So I can do 4 times 7, and that gets me the base of my rectangle. And then that base goes all the way up for 3 centimeters. And you will notice that I will still get the same answer. So I can do 4 times 7, which is 28. And then I can do 28 times 3, which gives me 84 centimeters cubed. So basically what I want you to understand, grade 7, is if you can find the base of this object, and then you just multiply by the height, or this by the height, you will find the volume. So let's try that with one more rectangular prism. So larger numbers, but that's okay. Length times width times height. Again, if you want, you can think of the base as 25 times 60. Or I could flip it on its end and think of my base as 20 times 25. It really doesn't matter, in this case, what order you multiply these things in. You're just making sure you multiply the length times the width times the height. And again, feel free to use your calculator on these questions. So we get 30,000 cubic centimeters. Now, let's move on to triangular prisms. So these are a little bit more complicated. What I want you to see here, there's no numbers. All I want you to see is this. See this bottom triangle? This is our base. So if I can find the area of that base, okay, and then just multiply it by the height, I will have this volume of this entire triangular prism. So what I'm saying is, if I can find the area and I go by the height, it's like me stacking triangles on top of each other until they get thicker, thicker, and thicker, and taller, and taller, and taller. So in order to understand that, it becomes important for over here. So here, I have a triangular prism. Now again, I want you to envision that it's flipped on its end. So I want you to picture this triangle right here as the base of my triangular prism. So another way to think about volume is to think it's really, let me switch off my highlighter. Volume is really the area of the base times the height. That's another way to think about it, which is important when we're talking about triangular prisms. So what I can do is I can think to myself, well, can I find the area of the base? I can, because I know how to find the area of a triangle. The area of the base is just the base times the height. And by the way, grade 7, when I'm talking about the base, I'm talking about the overall flat surface of the triangle that it can be sitting on. Okay? But then I use the base from the triangle, which is 6 feet times 4 divided by 2. So I get 6 times 4 is 24, and I divide by 2, so I get 12. So what I'm saying is this highlighted yellow triangle, just if it were flat on the ground, would be 12 feet squared. But now what I can do is I can take that 12 feet squared and I can use that for my volume. Here's my base, 12 feet is my triangle flat, and then it's being stacked on top of each other, and I multiply by 9. So I get 12 times 9, and then I would get my volume overall. So I would get 108 feet cubed, okay? So again, when you are finding the volume of a triangular prism, start with just the area of that base, and then just picture that base stacked on top of each other as many times as possible to reach 9 feet, and that's why we multiply by 9. So let's try one more. So here we still have a triangular prism, okay, but it just looks a little bit different. So again, when you're working on questions with triangular prisms, try and find that triangle and picture it flipped as being just the flat surface. So first I'm going to find the area of just that highlighted triangle using my formula base times height divided by 2. So I get 7 times 24 divided by 2. I can use my calculator to do that quickly. 7 times 24 divided by 2. And I get 84 meters squared. So that's just the area of just that one flat triangle. But now I'm picturing that triangle being stacked all the way up to 22 meters. So I'm going to do that overall area of the base's area, and I'm going to multiply it by the height that it's going all the way up. So I get 84 times 22. So 84 times 22, and I get 1,848 meters cubed, or cubic meters. So it's a little bit hard to visualize, but on all the ones, the triangular prism, if you can find the area of the triangular base and then just multiply it by the height going up, you'll be good to go. Hope you have a great Friday in the beautiful sunny weather.